from occupied London. No stranger, I think, to a lot of us. Certainly, the Labour Council has been really delighted to work with Occupy. And so, Anthony, I know as usual you're going to give it a unique spin, and so welcome.
Yeah, people who know me know I'm shy with my opinion. So I'll try and work my way through this. Yeah, and I invite questions. I really do. I think it's harder for me to get across my point of view because I'm going to be a little different than probably most of the other ones. Not that there's not a lot of value in what's already been said, but I see things maybe a little differently in some cases. So I'm mostly focusing on the austerity aspect of this because that's what it is. And to me as a radical, I mean, really austerity just means class war. It means that the extreme rich and the powerful and the corporations have, in my opinion, changed the rules of how the game works. And that since World War II, at least, there was sort of an agreement that the extreme rich would share some of their wealth and privilege and power with the building middle class as long as they continued to support them. And now they don't want to play that way anymore. Now they're rolling back the gains that have come since World War II, and the middle class, whatever that is, that could be another discussion, but they're definitely under attack. I mean, a massive attack, and it's not just a Canadian thing, it's mostly worldwide, and they're really under attack politically and economically, and it's, to me, straight up class war. It's taking back power and privilege to the people who already have most of it, and a concentration of wealth and power. And so yeah, this is part of a wave that's been going on around the world. It's definitely, as Patty said, not a natural phenomenon, or it's not like it's not just happening randomly. This has been planned for decades. I mean, since the 70s, workers' wages in real terms have been declining. And the 2008 economic collapse was totally used as an excuse, like a linchpin, the way 9/11 was used to launch wars and take people's rights back. The 2008 economic collapse was used in the same way by governments and corporations to launch an attack on working people. And that's happening all over the place, and that's what inspired a lot of the resistance movements that you're seeing around the world, including Occupy. Caterpillar is an awesome example of that, I think. A lot of us saw not that specific case coming, but things like that were going to be hitting. And it's just a really good example of that, a massive corporation known for its extreme class war and extreme punishing of unions, extreme efforts that they've used, and that they came into it totally with a plan ahead. They weren't sweating it in January the way the workers were. They already had it all figured out, the groundwork laid, they knew what their plan was, and they came in and took what they wanted and left us high and dry as a community and as a group of workers, and there's no concern. I mean, it's a war. And one way that I'm going to disagree probably with most of the people on the panel, maybe in the crowd, we'll see, is that I really don't have faith in government or parliamentary efforts in curing this. That would be a trend that's strong within Occupy and a lot of the larger movements that we've modeled after, like the indignance in Europe and the Arab Spring. People are having less and less faith in the political institutions that have been provided for us. One reason being that even some of the worst sellout cases around have been done by socialist governments that have sold their people out completely, like Spain and Greece have some of the largest resistance, and the austerity measures against them were brought in by so-called socialist governments. So to me, the answer really doesn't lie in Parliament with any party. None of the parties I see really have any, because it's the system itself, right? The capitalist economic system and the political system that supports it. So you're not going to get a system that's designed to work in a certain way to suddenly cure it back, unless it's just making a reform effort to sustain capitalism in the long run. So I have zero faith that that's the efforts that's going to produce any meaningful result. And so, I mean, if not through Parliament, then how? And we think Occupy represents an alternative, a growing alternative to people, that we would advocate a system of self-determination and participatory democracy, and to get there, we use direct action and civil disobedience. It's riskier, but it's a much more effective method that's been used and shown to be effective over and over and over throughout history. Most of the gains that we all enjoy now were brought about that way, through the labor movement or through community groups or student groups that have done it on their own. People who did sit-down strikes, people who refused to move when they were told, people who took over their factories or whatever. I mean, there's countless examples over time. And that really that's what it amounts to, is the systems we're using. And part of it's like George says, I mean, that's just one symptom where the money creation system itself is flawed. I mean, the Americans have had a system like that for about 100 years now, where they're getting basically robbed on every dollar they get. And now we have a similar system. But that's just one symptom to me, a really callous and insulting one, but one symptom of the larger system that is just geared against us. I mean, if you have a system that rewards and flows money and power to people who already have it, I mean, it's going to end up with an extreme imbalance, and that's what we're seeing. In fact, some of us think what we're seeing is the end phases of capitalism, where they're reaching the limits of how much more they can absorb. Like how much resources can they go on and take on? How much can they pollute the earth? How much can they screw the workers over before the system just can't keep gobbling and growing and expanding, right? Like I mean, that could be, again, another argument, but my feeling is that capitalism is experiencing some problems in sustaining its growth, and that that's really what we're up against, and that it's up to us to fight it.